An alarming report predicts increased terror attacks across Europe this year, carried out by returning fighters, some skilled in high-tech warfare. Defence analysts Jane's Terrorism and Insurgency Centre warns that some will have knowledge of drones and sophisticated bomb-making techniques. And the number of returning ISIL fighters is increasing, with the problem spreading across Europe. Fighters have returned to Germany, Britain and Belgium, but it's France where ISIL recruiters had the most success. A former Russian ISIL fighter who fled the terror group in Syria says he was misguided in his beliefs and pressured to become a suicide bomber. He surrendered himself to Russian security services on his return from the conflict zone. Yuri Balakshin was raised an Orthodox Christian but converted to Islam, and in 2014 went to Egypt to study the religion. He told RT that it was there that he was recruited by ISIL to fight in Syria.
I got interested and started reading forums and watching video online. I was given a phone number of a person who could help me get to Syria. He assured me that those who came could leave at any time and no one would be kept there. But they immediately took away our documents and telephones. It was a shock for me. I felt helpless. Everything was different from what they told me.
While in Syria, he lost a leg in an airstrike before finally deciding to flee. He returned to Russia and surrendered himself to the security services. However, he avoided punishment over his own decision to leave the terrorists. Yuri was one of the thousands of Russians who went to Syria and Iraq to join ISIL.
After an explosion, I lost my sight and felt a sudden pain. I realized my leg had been torn off. I had surgery and went through rehabilitation. At the same time, they were making a prosthetic leg for me. While I was lying in the hospital, people came up to me and tried to convince me to become a suicide bomber. They said that I anyway had no leg. What else could I do? I couldn't refuse directly. It could have caused suspicion. I was first overcome with joy while on a bus in Turkey. And only once I was in Russia did I realize I had managed to escape. In Saratov, I went to the FSB department and wrote a confession. I decided that it would be better. I was interrogated a lot, and I told them the whole story. Now I have a new family. I married a Russian Muslim girl. I work at a construction company and still stick to Islam, but I don't want to go to mosques anymore. I want to avoid questions.
As for France, out of almost 2,000 known citizens who travelled to join Islamic State, intelligence sources there say that 67 came from one particular Paris suburb, from where Charlotte Dubensky reports.
A short train ride from Paris is Trappes. On the surface, there's nothing much to set it aside from the thousands of other towns in the country. But you don't have to scratch very deep to see that Trappes is very different.
You won't see any non-halal butcher shops. There are, I think at the moment, over 1,500 prayer rooms and 5 mosques. If you look at people on the street, you won't see couples holding hands. You'll see the women are dressed in strict Islamic dress. There's a lot of homeschooling. So you couldn't really consider Trappes as a typical French town anymore. It's a little bit like a state within a state.
For decades, it's been considered a magnet for Muslim fundamentalists. Hardline Salafism and Wahhabism are widely practiced, and Trappes has become synonymous with jihadism.
Dozens of people left here to join Islamic State. Others have carried out attacks on French soil or have been linked to the Night of Terror in Paris in 2015. And while the terror threat appears to have been dialed down in France since the state of emergency was lifted, some claim that areas like Trappes remain a hotbed for jihadism.
It's only a matter of time before we have another attack. The basic problem is the ideology that's driving this, and this goes much deeper than terrorist cells planning and executing attacks.
That ideology is so ingrained that last year a poll of French high school students revealed 32% of Muslim students believed Islamic doctrine was superior to scientific fact. Another in 2016 showed that 68% believed Islamic law was superior to French law.
There's also concern that in an area like this that was once branded a no-go zone by the authorities, that Sharia is becoming the law of the land.
The full veil covering has been banned for 8 years, but in Trap, some women are flaunting the law. Yet the police are often reluctant to intervene after riots in 2013, when officers tried to ID a woman who was fully covered.
It's a very, very fragile situation which the government doesn't want to provoke urban riots which would quickly spread like wildfire all over France.
President Macron says he wants to reorganise Islam in a bid to fight fundamentalism. But some experts say that's a pipe dream. Radicalisation in places like this, they say, is already far too deep-rooted to dig out. Charlotte Dubinsky, RT, Trap.